Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the QuickSlant podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Rogers, and tonight we bring in from 24/7 Sports, Joey Helmer. We bring in from Cowboys Ride for Free and the Land Grant Gauntlet, Gerald Tracy, and once again I'm joined by my co-pilot here, the chief editor at the Land Grant Gauntlet, Chris Ross. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Oh, awesome.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get right into this. So, obviously, the biggest game last weekend was Oklahoma, Tennessee, narrowly escaping Knoxville with a huge victory. Baker Mayfield started the game shaky, but getting a lot of national attention this week, saying that he showed a very gritty, showed a lot of moxie in that performance. So, Joe, you cover the Sooners. We'll go ahead and start with you. What do you take away from that victory, and what do you take away about Baker Mayfield?
Well, Trevor, from the people that I've talked to I've been on a couple of sports radio stations this week, and kind of asked me the same question about that. And I think we had several questions coming into the season about the Sooners, and obviously the offensive line would be one of those. And in quarterback, how was Baker Mayfield going to fare being that starting quarterback? And I think we found out a lot in this first couple games, especially in that game at Tennessee last weekend. He throws a couple of picks that really weren't his fault on those two interceptions, but he stands in, and when the offense isn't doing anything, he makes plays with his feet and kind of gets out of trouble several different times, and ultimately leads them to scoring a couple of touchdowns late. And so I thought you found out a lot about his moxie in that game in a very tough environment. Probably the toughest road environment that I've ever covered a game at. Of course, I saw Oklahoma in 2011 when they went to Florida State, and at Notre Dame a couple of years ago, and some other places. But it was as loud as any environment that I've ever seen it. And so for Mayfield to stand in and make some of the plays he did and lead them back was really impressive.
Chris, I'm going to throw this to you. A lot of people are, kind of wondering. You look at this game and say, did Tennessee really blow this game, or do you call it a comeback for Oklahoma? What do you take away from this? Is Tennessee still, a year away, or is this? How do you rate this win for Oklahoma?
I'd put it really high. I didn't actually get to watch this game. I was on my way to the Oklahoma State game, listening to it on the radio. When I walked into the Cowboy game, I was thinking Oklahoma was done. They had no momentum. Their offense couldn't stay on the field, and I thought it was a matter of time before Tennessee just ran them out of Knoxville. Followed the game on my phone during the Oklahoma State game. I noticed Tennessee stopped scoring. I thought that was kind of interesting. The Oklahoma defense was holding, and then to follow it along and see that not only that Oklahoma tied it in the fourth, but then they won in double overtime. I got to tell you, I was incredibly impressed. That's the kind of win that builds an entire season. That's a defining win. I would not be surprised to see Oklahoma use that to springboard into the Big 12 title game, to be, well, not the actual game, since there isn't one, but you know what I mean, where they're contending for that championship. Big time environment, just incredibly impressed that the defense buckled down. As far as Tennessee goes, yeah, maybe they're a year away. That is a win you kind of have to pull out. You kind of got to get that job done. There's no excuse to lose that. But honestly, I put that win on Oklahoma. Oklahoma won that game more than Tennessee lost it. Oklahoma's defense was just unbelievable to pull out that win.
That brings me to my next point, and I'll throw this one to Gerald. Gerald, impressive performance by Oklahoma's defense, which makes people wonder with the Oklahoma bringing in Tyron Reynolds and Kerry Cooks to kind of address some things on the defensive side of the ball. Was this a game where Oklahoma, we see that Oklahoma has made some improvement from the defense last year, or was Tennessee's offense maybe just that bad?
I've been looking at that a little bit over the past few days. I was able to look up a little bit on the OU Tennessee game. OU, I believe, is in the top 10 in the pass defense right now, and really good for them, especially you come out of the gates, you don't want to allow any kind of yards. These non-conf schedules, that first game, Akron, second game, Tennessee, it looked like it was going to be a lot scarier off the bat than it was. Whenever Tennessee struggled with Bowling Green, was it last week? That worried me a little bit for...
Yes.
That worried me a little bit for OU. This will be a little easier of a game. So I expected OU to walk in and really kind of beat Tennessee. But after watching, I guess, keeping up with the game, because I was at that OSU game, I had to call it for homework, play-by-play. So I only got to see really the first quarter. But once I saw that OU's defense really shut them down and really made sure that Tennessee had a hard time moving the ball in that second half and in overtime, really, from what I've been able to see, I think that the pass defense is going to be really good. And I think there's no reason for it not to be. They have a lot of talent. So I've been expecting this for a while.
Joe, I'll go ahead and let you finish this, get the last word on this one, since you are our OU guy. We've talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. A year ago, I don't think Oklahoma wins that game. I think they go down 17-0, and Oklahoma walks out of that stadium maybe losing 35-7 or something like that. Joe, I mean, kind of what are your thoughts? Do you think did we see something different out of this team that we would have seen from last year?
We definitely did. I don't think there's any question. This is a game that you saw at TCU last year and against Kansas State at home, and also against Oklahoma State last year in Bedlam, and whatever you want to say about making a horrible coaching decision late in that game, but even after that, Oklahoma doesn't get a stop defensively and just didn't make the plays that they needed to make in all those games to win those games. And I think this is definitely a game last year that they wouldn't have won. And one of the major reasons is what we talked about before with Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Trevor Knight, but Mayfield just has a swagger and just a will to win that I think just permeates through this team, and I think you saw that last weekend.
Very good stuff. Let's move on to the other side of the Red River. Guys, what is going on with the University of Texas? We see Steve Patterson finally getting the axe. A lot of unrest in Longhorn Nation right now. Chris, let's toss this to you. With Steve Patterson's firing, what does that mean for Charlie Strong and the Longhorns this year?
Well, I think that for the most part, Charlie Strong is pretty secure in his job. I do think that there is the question, what does that mean? The guy that hired him is no longer there. But Mike Heron, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, the new interim AD, he spoke out very strongly in support of Strong. We've known that this rebuild is going to take some time. He's working with some very young players. If he gets more guys like Malik Jefferson, they'll be okay. He just needs the time to get it. And I believe that he's going to get it because I don't think the interim AD will make a move. And then even if a move didn't need to be made, I'm not sure if a new AD makes it. Once they have a permanent AD, I don't know if he makes it right away. So honestly, right now, I think Texas, as far as Charlie Strong is concerned, they're okay. And they just got to get through this next stretch of games. They can get through this next stretch of games and win one or two, they'll be okay.
Gerald, do you think Texas, we look at their schedule coming up, the next 4 games, Cal, TCU, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, are we looking seriously at a 1-4 or 1-4 Texas team through October 10th?
I mean, I haven't seen a reason really to think that we don't see that happen. I think Oklahoma State may be the only team that keeps it relatively close to Texas. OU will probably just stumble, OU. It's the Red River rivalry. All rivalries will be a little closer in the first half. I think OU will probably run away with it in the second. But I mean, I don't see a reason Texas really wins any of those games. Cal might be one of the closer ones as well. But I mean, Charlie Strong, I like what he's trying to do, but I think he might be gone within the next year and a half.
Joe, do you think that this is maybe just going to be a conflict of interest with Charlie Strong, or do you think that this is really going to fall fall down to his performance? Essentially, what's going to be the biggest factors for Charlie Strong retaining his job at Texas?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to win. I mean, you're at a place like Texas, you have to win. This is not a place where you can come in and have losing seasons. It's just that's the bottom line. And there might be a personality clash with him in the administration. I'm not sure. I can't. Obviously, I'm not down there covering Texas, so I don't really have that perspective as far as that's concerned. But ultimately, you have to win, and when you don't win at a high-profile, one of the premier jobs in the country, then yes, you are going to be under fire, and that's the situation that Charlie Strong is kind of working himself into right now. And I think, with the AD situation, getting with the firing there and everything, I think that shows how much the athletic department kind of is in shambles right now. And, before the season with Bianco, their media relations guy getting let go, I think that was also, he's one of the most highly regarded media relations guys in the country. And so all that kind of stuff indicates some issues going on. And but ultimately for Strong, and once we get back to talking about on the playing field, he's going to have to win, and that's what it's going to come down to as far as if he's kept around. It sounds very simple, very simplistic, but that's just the reality.
I would add that I agree. I mean, if you think about it, they only have 2 games on the schedule that you think that they will win in Kansas and Iowa State. Everybody else, even Texas Tech, and their offense, the way it's going right now, you don't know if Texas can win that game. I mean, they got a chance, but that's not a gimme by any means. If they don't finish bowl eligible or above 500, then I think the conversation definitely changes in Austin, and the seed would be pretty warm.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. If Hurd, though, can play like he did at Rice, given it was Rice, I mean, Texas may be able to savor a little bit of this season, but I'm not sure.
I'm really concerned with Texas, and I had this concern with Charlie Strong coming into the Big 12 in general. I have the utmost respect for Charlie Strong. I think he's a very good football coach, but you've got to wonder, and we're starting to see this. Texas, even though they won convincingly against a lesser opponent in Rice last week, they only put up like 218 yards of total offense. And most of their points came off of turnovers and special teams. Can Texas really compete offensively in a league that it surrounds itself in high-octane, high-powered offenses? And that's where I wonder, is it a personality clash really for the Longhorns going forward? Very different style. I like what Charlie Strong brings, but guys, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if Texas fans are going to be okay with only putting up 200 yards of offense a game moving forward, especially when if you don't put up video game offenses in this league, you don't do very well. And we've seen that before from other teams that have struggled. So let's go ahead and leapfrog. Gerald, I'll keep this with you. Another important Texas school, the Red Raiders, traveling to Arkansas for one of the bigger games of the weekend for the Big 12. You looked at this game 2 weeks ago, and you say, man, Texas Tech has got problems. They got run all over by Arkansas last year. This is going to be a blowout. But then you look at Arkansas just implode against Toledo. It makes you start to wonder, with the improvement of Mahomes, this isn't such a clear victory for the SEC in Arkansas, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It's definitely a lot more, I guess you could say, foggy now. My thing with it, Arkansas historically hasn't played great in Little Rock, and that's where last week's Toledo game was. That's not a reasonable excuse to say we just, for lack of a better word, just didn't show up. I can't even think, but I do think that Texas Tech will keep it closer. Like you're right, 3 weeks ago, I think Arkansas is going to stomp all over them. I think Arkansas might have a chance to compete in the SEC. Obviously, after last week's loss, a lot's changed. I think Texas Tech will find a way to keep it closer, but I think they'll struggle scoring as much as they have in the past 2 weeks. I have Arkansas winning, but I don't know what the spread is, but if the spread is something like Arkansas by 17, I'm taking the under.
It's 11 and a half.
I'd probably the under still.
You know, we give a lot of teams trouble and a lot of crap, if you will, for scheduling lesser opponents. But Brett Bielema got caught with his foot and mouth earlier in the week for knocking, or last week for knocking Ohio State about their weak non-conference schedule. But Joey, I would have to think you got to give it up to the Big 12 and to Texas Tech for scheduling an SEC opponent, especially when Texas Tech is in the rebuilding process that they're in. I mean, what do you think that means for Texas Tech?
Well, I think it's huge to have those kinds of games for Texas Tech, but it's huge for the Big 12 in general, because I think that the national perception right now is you're looking at a team like Baylor that a lot of people think will win the league, Baylor and TCU, but obviously with what happened last year and Baylor being kept out of the playoff, they had a really weak non-conference schedule, and again, another really weak non-conference schedule. And so for Texas Tech to have an Arkansas, for Oklahoma to have a Tennessee on their schedule, those games are huge, and I think it's very important for the league that these kinds of games are played. And if I can add in on what I think is going to happen this week, I'm not really sure that after Arkansas losing to Toledo, I think, as you guys talked about, a couple of weeks ago, I said, okay, yeah, Arkansas, like you said, Trevor, that they just really ran all over Texas Tech last year. But my thoughts on this game are just kind of up in question because just how terrible Arkansas looked last week.
Chris, we've talked about Mahomes being if not the best quarterback in the Big 12 through week 2, certainly being in the conversation of that top 3. What do you think we learn about Mahomes and the Red Raiders this weekend?
Oh, I think we're going to see a guy that just won't quit. I mean, this guy is legit. He is very good. In 2 games, he's put up 786 yards and 10 total touchdowns, with another 71 yards on the ground. So, I mean, his production is unbelievable. He extends plays. He kind of has that, I hate to say it, but Johnny Manziel-esque, just by keeping a play alive and willing it to happen. I honestly think that this game is going to come down to Texas Tech's defense. You know, what does David Gibbs show? That's where the improvement's got to come from. If they're going to win this game, we got to see improvement on the other side of the ball. The offense is going to show up, but will it be enough? I don't know, because Arkansas will probably try to beat Tech into submission, bend them to their will, and that's where the defense has to give the offense some help.
Chris, give me a quick prediction. Who do you got this weekend?
Oh my gosh, don't ask me, because I predicted Texas to beat Notre Dame. I said Tennessee was going to win.
You're off to a rough start, Chris. It'll get better, I promise.
I want to pick Texas Tech, but I don't want to do that to them, so I'll pick Arkansas.
Gerald, give me your quick prediction.
I've got Arkansas, like I said, in a close one. I don't think Tech's defense can stop them, and I think they got a great quarterback over there. I think they're going to have something to prove because they know they just crapped the bed against Toledo. So,
Joey.
Gosh, man, I think I'm going to go Arkansas by a field goal, but I'm looking at this. I don't understand how Arkansas is 11.5-point favorite. I'm confused on the line on this game, but I don't know. At Reynolds Razorback Stadium, I think I'll go with Arkansas. Just it's a flip a coin for me, and I'll go with the Razorbacks.
To hell with you all. I am going to believe in Coach McDreamy. I really like the Red Raiders this weekend. Arkansas looked abysmal. Couldn't run the ball on Toledo.
I didn't see him because obviously
It was, guys, it was just sad. I like the Red Raiders. I think the Red Raiders are going to score some points this weekend. I think this game could be a track meet, and if you get into a track meet, I would have to think I like Cliff Kingsbury and his offense and Mahomes a little bit better to put up more points than I like a Brett Bielema to put up points. But that's just me. So call me crazy. I like the Red Raiders this weekend, and it's one of those probably off the wall picks that you won't see me make for the rest of the year. Um, so let's go ahead and move on to Oklahoma State. Guys, I saw this interest. I saw interesting yesterday. Sam Mays, who Oklahomans are very familiar with, he's on 107.7 The Franchise, tweeted something yesterday about at this point in the season, does Oklahoma State, let's say they're playing Tennessee, where does Oklahoma State, do they have a chance in that game? And overwhelmingly, the response that I saw, I didn't see one response that said Oklahoma State would have won that game. Personally, I think the Pokes still have a lot of potential and are better than people think, but you're starting to hear rumors about inadvertent or maybe intentional lack of effort coming out of Oklahoma State and what they're doing right now. Gerald, I'll go ahead and throw this to you. If we were to put the panic scale on 1 to 5, where should the Cowboys be at right now?
2.5 because of the offensive line. Offensive line is pretty bad. They told us there was something that would be fixed this year, and maybe even go 3. But I mean, I think that the defense is going to be great. I mean, you talked about how OU's defense is really impressed. I think Oklahoma State's is impressed. They need to get more turnovers. But Oklahoma State's defense has been pretty impressive. Given it's been against lower tier opponents, I still like that. I still like what's been going on. Rudolph has had pretty good stats. He's not throwing 6 touchdowns a game or throwing for 500 yards like Pat Mahomes is, but we really haven't needed him to. The rushing game, I think it'll get better if the offensive line gets better. But I mean, right now you got to worry about that offensive line. They're not really stopping anybody. We saw Paul Lewis, the center for the PAT team. He allowed number 41 for UCA, I can't remember his name right now, right through twice in 2 straight PATs, and they blocked both of them. So that's really the biggest worry for me is just that offensive line. I know that their morale isn't very high right now as a unit, and they know they haven't been playing well. They know the media knows it. They know everybody knows it. So I'm hoping that will change, and I'm hoping that. But this team, I mean, they're an 8 or 9 win team. They're not going to be world beaters. They're not going to win the Big 12 this year.
Joey, what do you think? Do you agree with Gerald that this team, still potentially 8 or 9 wins this year, or is there something missing that Pokes fans should definitely be concerned about?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about 8 or 9 wins. I mean, obviously you look and they're in the top 25 now after a couple of wins to start the season. But I thought in that first game against Central Michigan, which was the only one of the 2 that I was able to see, that they were really unimpressive to me in that game. I thought they were just up front. They had trouble on both sides of the ball against a Central Michigan team that, let's face it, that's not Big 12 level competition in the trenches. And I mean, Gerald talked about the offensive line, and I think when you get to teams like Oklahoma and like Baylor with Sean Oakman and Andrew Billings and guys like that, they're going to have to go up against. The competition's only going to get that much stiffer, and so we'll see. I think they're a mid-pack Big 12 team. One of the teams that I've really liked so far this season is West Virginia. I think that's a team that's not being talked about enough, and I'm not so sure that I don't have them above Oklahoma State now. And then those other 3 teams, Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma, I think are kind of all fighting out for the top 3 positions. But Oklahoma State's in that 4 to 6 range, I would say, for sure.
Chris, talk some sense into these people. I know that you were really high on Oklahoma State earlier this year. Come on, man. What's going on?
Well, I was high, but I have really backed off of that. I'm pretty worried about the Pokes right now. For the reasons everybody said, the offensive line is just a mess, and really that was a problem last year. And that's the reason for the concern. The fact that it hasn't been shored up like we thought it was going to be. They have more help this year. They're a little bit deeper this year on the offensive line. Greg Atkins is a very good offensive line coach. This is his first year. This unit's had 3 different coaches in 3 years. It's hopefully they can gel and get it together and get working. But right now, against Central Michigan and Central Arkansas, Chris Carson, the lead running back, is only averaging 3.6 yards a carry. That's simply not good enough. The run game has to get established, and whether they do that by opening up the playbook a little bit more, by stretching it downfield a little bit more, because Central Arkansas and Central Michigan, they weren't shy. They kind of loaded the box. They came out to stop that run, and that has a little bit to do with it. But there's definitely cause for concern, and I agree. I put West Virginia above and Oklahoma above Oklahoma State right now. So I have them 5th in the conference.
I'm going to agree with all 3 of you guys, and I know that's weird because Joey and Chris, you definitely took one angle of it. Gerald, you took another. But I see what you're saying on both ends for sure. I'm one of those people right now that says right now Oklahoma State does not look good, but that's no. They did this to me last year, and they proved a lot of people wrong. I gotta think that there's enough weapons there, especially with Mason Rudolph. That Oklahoma State will make improvement throughout the year. My biggest reservation and still concern about Oklahoma State is Mike Yurcich. We've seen 2 very stagnant, almost confused offenses about what kind of identity they have. And so it just leads me to believe that this team will only go as far as Mike Yurcich allows them to. For you guys that are around the Oklahoma State program, is that a concern? Are people starting to get a little befuddled about Mike Yurcich, Gerald?
Oh yeah, absolutely. People have been befuddled about him for about a year and a half now. They haven't liked him. They forget that 2013 the OSU went 10-3, and all they remember is last year was injury ridden and the offensive line was poor. Joe Wickline left. Is that all Yurcich's fault? I don't think so. Can he hold a majority, if not some of the blame? Yeah. I have to agree with you. Yurcich, sometimes his play calling can be stagnant. But there's also times where he calls great plays and Rudolph either overthrows it or the line doesn't block whatsoever. It's kind of you get some, you take some. I don't know, but yeah. Go back. I'm going to go back real quick to the West Virginia thing. I'm really high on them too. I think that people should be talking about them. But that stretch where they go on in the beginning of this conference season, OU, TCU, BU, and OSU, I think it's going to be really hard for them. That's the only reason I haven't put them as high as some.
Joey, real quick, we've kind of heard a couple people compare Mike Yurcich to Josh Heupel stylistically and kind of they're in terms of ideology. You being around the Oklahoma program and what you've seen from Oklahoma State. Real quick, do you think that's maybe a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's possible. I think the thing that needs to be talked about with Heupel is that I just think the thing that ultimately was his downfall was the fact that there was so much disorganization at the line of scrimmage. And, I haven't necessarily watched Oklahoma State that closely so far this season, but I think those were things that were issues. And obviously you're not seeing those with Lincoln Riley now. But I think if you look as far as productivity is concerned, Heupel always had pretty good offenses at Oklahoma. He had a top 20 offense last year, and of course, Samaje Perine runs for 1,700 yards, and so it wasn't a problem moving the ball normally from time to time, but they had trouble with communication and that sort of thing. So if one of these 2 other guys wants to kind of talk about that, but I think that was a real issue for Heupel.
Chris, real quick, give me your on-look for what Oklahoma State does in their next game.
Well, I mean, at this point, I don't know. I'm sure we'll see about 35 bubble screens. 16 runs up the middle right after a first down, just to waste that first down. We'll see a lot of that. So, really, I mean, are we surprised Oklahoma State struggles when they only get two downs every 4 to do something with it? No, I don't know. No, I mean, honestly, though, I'm kind of done with Yursich. I think that Gerald Dwight, there is some issues with Rudolph not making the right reads. When you break down the film, you see that. But honestly, as an offensive coordinator, you have to know the tendencies of your QB in situations. And you have to play call accordingly. You can't just go out there and do what you want if you know your guy's not going to do that. And the bottom line is we didn't have this issue with Monken or Holgerson, as OCs. We didn't wonder how good is this offense really. We didn't have to dissect everything to find out, what's the real problem going on. You just kind of knew. And also, they didn't really care if people saw the playbook early because it was up to them to stop it, and good luck with that. You don't see that out of Yursich at all. I think that's part of the issue. His play calling has to get a lot better, and I don't really care about keeping it vanilla anymore.
It's going to be interesting for sure with the Pokes. I'm sure we'll continue to revisit this as we will with a lot of teams. It's still early. A lot of great things to look forward to. Thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast this week. This was a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun when we get to talk Big 12 football. You guys talked on West Virginia, and Joey, I'm with you. I don't think they're getting enough attention yet, and so next week let's definitely talk Mountaineer football because they'll be gearing up for their first big tests of the season. So it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Texas conundrum again, and then what is going on with Baylor's defense. So for Joey Helmer, Gerald Tracy, and Chris Ross, I'm Trevor Rogers. Thanks again for listening and watching the QuickSlant podcast. We'll talk to you guys next week.